I wanted to ask you more about the construction business in general. Like, isn't it lonely for a successful woman in construction? Um, it's a male-dominated environment. You're breaking the stereotype, definitely.
Yes, I'm breaking the
Yeah.
stereotype. I have quite an advantage now about being a female-owned business because there's a lot of procurement routes which now have to work with female small businesses, which is great. It's a natural advantage I have. I personally haven't experienced too much. I can't think of the word now, but I never really experienced bullying. Or that sort of offensiveness from men in the industry. However, I have always worked very hard. I've had to find that I had to really demonstrate and prove my worth, perhaps over some male colleagues that probably didn't put in as much hard work as I had done to earn the respect of the people I'm working with. I can see where some women find it quite overpowering in terms of it being you're being the minority in the room, and I've witnessed that, and I think it's a real shame. But personally, I've never really felt put off by that. I found it more interesting and actually. Maybe it's the way that I was brought
Raised.
up and raised. My mother's a very strong woman and very competitive, and I don't know whether that's competitiveness has sort of worn off, that I haven't really seen a difference between the boys and the girls. I do recognise it, and I have always had to work really hard and found myself again having to prove myself that I say the right thing. So I would do an awful lot of preparation before meetings. I would turn up prepared. I still do. It's the way I am. And it would always be perfect. So interestingly, that was I had some therapy during COVID, and it turned out that a lot of things I used to do as a child as a coping mechanism. My father was quite domineering, and I grew up in sort of a family of domestic violence. And if I hadn't got something right or something was wrong, it would trigger a sort of an argument.
Yeah.
So I grew up very early age in kind of a very male dominated space, and my survival technique is that was basically don't fuck up. You had everything right all the time, you didn't do anything wrong, you were always kind of ready and prepared, and that would avoid there being sort of anything that felt like I had triggered a sort of a nasty situation to kick off. So I think probably what I unpacked when I had therapy around that was what had been a coping mechanism as a child had actually enabled me to be prepared for male dominating figures in the industry. And actually, ironically, I've ended up mostly working for quite domineering, strong men that are in positions of power because that's how they've got there. So I think perhaps as part of my own upbringing, which enabled me to kind of actually confront those issues, or it wasn't quite difficult for me. I also found that as I got a bit older and more established in my role, building relationships up with those people was actually quite key to breaking down those barriers. We have a really interesting take on this, and I was having a debate with somebody else in the room, at an event a couple of weeks ago, where they said, oh, you know, you're the only woman in the room, and I get really upset when they ask you to make a cup of tea. And I was like, I get that, but why can't you use that to your advantage? You know, you can make everybody a cup of tea, you create a nice environment, it's all relationship building, it's you can stand at the tea counter and have a conversation for 2 minutes about their family, about what they did at the weekend.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really nice time to build up a relationship with people. You get to know people. You know, as a woman, you come across naturally with a nature of caring, and it's actually an opportunity to create a nice environment for people to have a conversation, to get to know somebody, for them to trust you for that. And I find all of this quite tiring now when they're like, oh, you know, I always get asked to make the tea, and I'm like, just make a cup of tea. It's not really a big deal. And I think there's I do think there's a lot of that now where people are kind of on this sort of,
Well, you can't
difficult
magic how
sides.
somebody feels, right?
Yeah, so you can't, and it's interesting. So I personally haven't done that. I have dealt with some very difficult male characters, and I have dealt with issues where I felt men have surpassed me, particularly career-wise, because I went off for 2 years with maternity leave, both times, well, 1 year each time, and that felt very frustrating. But I've also, you then have to take the perspective, look, we're all working for 30, 40 years. All right, I'm a year behind now, but I've still got 30, 40 years ahead of me of working. I'd rather take 6 months, a year off with my child now. I can make that time up later and it will come. But again, that probably has driven me to always be prepared and deliver. So I just don't think you can sit on the fence and say, poor me, if you don't put the effort in.
Definitely. I agree with you.